All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Tim, and we have Paul.
Me.
Yeah, there we go. We're back after our last episode, which was I told my wife, I said, Melissa, like that was one of the most fun episodes I have ever been a part of.
Mm-hmm.
It was interesting, and I'm just glad we had a good time doing it. So I did save. I didn't tell you this, Paul, but I did save a couple of those photos in case we have a humorous interlude. I may just pop up one of those photos just to kind of emphasize the humor. Um,
Are we going to see a big buff German guy not wearing
we
very
may
much?
we may see a buff German guy, and we may see another guy taking down another guy with a hot dog in his hand. So,
Ooh, the hot dog garrote.
oh my goodness. Okay, so we had a good time last time we were on. That was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? 3 weeks
That
ago.
was 3 weeks ago, and then we
Yeah,
had our meetup 2 weeks ago.
yeah, yeah. Oh man, that
So
was so fun
that
too.
was
Why
fun.
don't you give us an update on the meetup, and then we'll get into the EDC photos, and then we'll get into the dive watch thing.
Sure. So we kind of alluded to it on the last show that we did together, but at the end of last month, we hosted a watch meetup here in Central Salt Lake, and Tim came down from Montana. We had a great guy who came down from Idaho,
Hmm.
and then some folks from the northern edge of Utah down to about the Provo area who came up for it. So we had a fun time. We just basically had like a late lunch, early dinner, and then we wandered through the Watches of Switzerland
Hmm.
boutique. I have a photo of Tim wearing a $14,000 Breitling
Oh
at this
man,
boutique
it was
that fit you
awesome.
perfectly.
It was
And
awesome.
and that salesman that they had there was very knowledgeable. He knew what he was talking about.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And you were
definitely.
wearing your Alum watch, and everybody asked you about it at every single boutique.
Hey, I have to say because this is one of those things. Like I was not intending to wear this watch,
Hmm.
and I walked out to the car and was like, "I'm not changing watches. I gotta get back in there." So I went back in there, and I didn't think I thought it was gonna be just laughed off. But you're right. Like everybody was like, "What is that?" So
Fascinated. Yeah, I will say that
yeah,
they're respectful at those boutiques. I've never seen them.
yeah, yeah,
Obviously, they're not
for
going to make
sure.
customers, or they're ridiculing customers for what they're wearing, but they're pretty respectful. But
Yeah,
I tried on some Monacos at the
yeah,
Tag Heuer part of the boutique, and they fit pretty well.
yep,
I don't think I want to spend $10,000 on a watch right now, but fun to try them on.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't have a date for the next one, but we're going to try to host one sometime next month when it's a little bit cooler. Here in Salt Lake, earlier this week, the high was 114 degrees on Monday.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's
I
nuts.
ended up getting new tires because my old ones, while they weren't at the end of their lifespan, it was hot enough that they were sticking to the road more than what I would have wanted. Got new
Wow.
tires on the truck.
I haven't
But
run
yeah,
into that problem yet. That's a problem.
it's this is the hottest summer since I moved out here a couple years back. And
Yeah.
it's not like miserable, but it's pretty darn hot. So I'd like to host the next one as we get into fall, because here in Utah, and I'm sure Montana's not much different. Once you hit end of September, early October, it starts to get nice and cool
Yep.
before it just turns into snow. Here, like
Yeah.
October 15th is all snowy here in Utah. But we're gonna try to do another meetup sometime next month.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a
Cool.
fun little get together. We all were showing off our favorite Casios and Timexes
Yeah.
and our favorite, Omegas or
Right.
Sin watches or whatever it might be, Breitlings. The theme of last month's meetup was analog and digital, so we all brought our favorite analogs and digitals. I think you brought what, 40 watches?
Well, I
You brought
brought
a
them, but I didn't show them
suitcase.
all. I brought my case. It's like I can't choose. I'm just bringing the whole thing. I'll decide when I'm there, and so I did. I decided when I was there. When I was there.
Hmm.
So
But
hey,
yeah, so
Chris,
we had a
good to
good
see
time with
Chris.
that.
Chris is on there. I just want to acknowledge Chris out there. Yeah, it
Awesome,
was a
there he
good
is.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we certainly had a good time. And what I love about the watch world, especially for folks that are really down to earth, which is most people, is that you and I can enjoy our $15 Casios, but also we can enjoy watches that cost a lot more, as this list will show for at least one of us.
All right, we'll get to that in a second because our dive watch thing is another fun one that we got to
Yes.
do. This is not a new topic. There's been so many people have done this topic before, but
Hmm.
it just shows a little personality, and I think everybody gets a kick out of seeing what the host of a channel would choose, and you get to see their thought process a little bit. So, all right,
Hmm.
EDC time. Here we go. This was about a week, about 2 weeks worth of stuff, and I forgot to put the flashlights in. They're not a big deal, but yeah, the Casio calculator data bank watches. I like them, and I saw
Hmm.
another guy. Who was I watching that I saw wearing the 611? That's the silver one there in the on the right center side, and I saw another guy wearing a gold version of the
I
611.
believe it. I believe it.
Like I don't know if are you seeing those around more?
They sell them at Walmart. So no, I know it sounds weird, but like any watch that gets sold at Walmart, I've noticed more in my
Yeah,
more in my area, whether it's an F91 or a what W108 or F108 or the databank watches.
yeah. I don't know. I've never seen the 611 out this much since the 90s, I guess. I don't know, late 80s. Because I had that watch when I was in junior high, which was the or mid 80s, like 84, 85, 86 maybe. Somewhere I don't remember exactly, but I know it was junior high. I think it was probably 86. So but
Well,
anyway, so I got that. What else we got? The bottom left there, that Casio calculator watch. That's the CMD 40. And the
hmm
cool buttons on there are remote controls for a TV, VCR. Paul, let me tell you what a VCR is. So,
hey, I've
Paul,
got
a
VHS tapes over in
VCR
my
is
office.
a video cassette recorder.
Is that like an 8-track?
It's better than an 8-track. I don't know if you've ever worked with an 8-track before, but they suck.
All the 8
Um,
tracks I've used have played the Bee Gees, which means that they're pretty bad.
yeah.
So,
So, but the interesting thing about that watch is you can get the code. Like there's a bunch of
mhm,
codes that you type in, and it actually works on modern TVs. I turn
yeah,
the TV on and off with this. I change the channel with it. It works fine. Then we got the Addis Dive Deep Sea Hunter. That's the tan one, and
and
then
that
the
has a mega quartz
Borealis.
movement, right?
Yep, yep. And then the Borealis Sea Storm Mark II with the GMT. And that's a fantastic watch. That's 300 meters of water resistance. Then we got the GD 350, the old G-Shock. I've worn that quite a bit
hmm
with my lawn care. And then, of course, the Swiss Army knives up there. We got the Swiss Champ in the upper left, the Ranger, the white nail clip, which I highly, highly recommend people get a nail clip. I think it's a great, great thing. And then the Mini Champ is the red one there, and the black one is the classic. Oh, and there's the AE 1500 at the top. So,
Classic.
yeah. And then is it Mikala? I think it's Mikala knife. Fantastic knife for $30. Titanium handle, 14 CR steel, I think it is in there. Just fantastic knife for $30. Frame lock, whole deal. Lightweight. So that's my everyday carry. Of course, you got the AirPods, Apple, whatever. So, any thoughts?
I mean, the watches make sense to me. I have some of my EDC stuff here, and I've got a Swiss Army knife here. I mean, we carry a
Yeah,
lot of the same things.
yeah.
Truth be told, I found that I'm using my Swiss Army knife as a folding knife more than I'm using the actual folding knife I carry these days. But
Hmm.
that's been a theme the last couple of years.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, plenty of good stuff here.
All right. Let's take a look at yours.
Hard to hate it. So, anyone who's watched the channel or watched the live streams and seen my EDC, the thing with it is that it doesn't change, right? So, I've been using the same Surefire flashlight since 2018, the EDC L2T. Great output. The button for it is non-clicky, but it has a light press. You can see it behind me.
Yep.
Do it like this: a light press for the low mode, and then a heavier press for the high mode. I like that I can just push through. They call it the gas pedal. The pocket knife is the same Spyderco that I've been carrying since I bought this as a entering college like gift to myself. A Spyderco military I've had for a decade. The Swiss Army knife is the same one I've carried for years and years and years. The
What model
Carmex
is
gets
that?
swapped out. I believe it's the Sportsman. It's the
Okay.
one that's got a knife, the can opener, a bottle opener, the two flathead bits attached to it, the nail file, the corkscrew, the awl, and then toothpick and our tweezers. So pretty basic.
Yeah.
The pen, Fisher Space pen, I actually use this a lot. I've been doing a lot of paperwork for the firearm side of the website that I write for. So doing a lot of writing. Wallet has stayed the same. The little black Sony thing are my headphones. Pepper spray is the purple and black can there. I still have my waterproof paper, which I know Mr. Jim Kincaid's a big fan of the Write in the Rain stuff. This is Field Notes, which is their competitor, but same stuff. Of
Sure.
course, keys are the same. And then the watch is the one that you're
What?
loaning me.
What is that?
This is the Signum Cuda
Yeah.
Mark II titanium full loom. So you sent it to me, and I got it in a week and a half ago. I want to say
Yeah.
a little over a week
It's
and a
about
half
that. Yeah.
ago. The first full day I had it, I dunked it in a lake and had some ducks that tried to steal it from me. And I had that on video. I think I sent you the video.
Yeah.
It's been a cool watch so far. I've got, it's not perfect, but no watch is perfect, right? But I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it quite a bit. It's been a
Yeah.
fun little thing. And then when it comes to EDC, since I've been trying to wear this watch a fair bit to get time in for the review purposes, the other watch I've been wearing has actually been the Arnie. because I want to work on this as a review, but also I treat the Arnie a lot like a G-Shock. It's got a backlight, it's got dual time, it's got certain modes. So if I'm at the gym, this is the watch I've been wearing. When I'm doing my cardio, I've got this on. I went shooting this morning. Look at it over here, shooting this morning, and this is the one that I wore when I was doing all that pistol testing.
Yep.
So yeah, these two watches have been the EDC lately for watches. So I got a lot of gripes with the Arnie, but I'm enjoying wearing it.
Yeah. Does the Arnie have a backlight for the analog or the digital or both?
So I can unscrew this and do it here. The backlight is strictly for the digital readout at the top.
Okay.
However, the lume on this is probably the best feature of the watch. The lume is fantastic. I don't have a UV light in here.
Yeah.
This is one that I will take a little UV flashlight to this watch before I go to bed at like 11 o'clock at night, and it'll still be loomed up when I get up at 6:30 or 6.
Yeah.
So it's not so bright that it's blinding me 3 hours after I have it on, like this one does. Like I had to pull this one off the first night and throw it in my dresser, and swap to this. But it's bright enough that if I wake up to hop in the shower at 6 o'clock in the morning like I did this morning, I can still tell the time without having to use the backlight.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean all the watches I have, especially on this list, but all the watches I've got generally good lume, much like what you like. We want good lume in our watches.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but the EDC has been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
Oh, the Moras are fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Garmin Instinct. I mean, a lot of people carrying or wearing the Garmin watch.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of Apple watches out there, but if you're doing more outdoor type stuff, and Chris is outdoors right now, but
yeah,
the Garmin is just heads and tails, hands and feet,
hands down,
hands down.
Yeah, my girlfriend's wearing a Garmin watch right now. She's in the next room over. She's wearing I think a Venue 3, which is one of their more athletic fitness wear ones, but a lot of the same functionality. And I get it,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a wrist-mounted GPS that tells the time, won't die, does all those nice things,
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. There you go. That's the EDC. Yours is you are pretty boring, Paul.
Honestly, the things that change the most in my EDC are the guns that I carry and the watches I wear. Everything else is pretty consistent.
Yeah, that's true. Well, there's good reasons for that.
Yeah,
especially if you're training and that there's a couple of things I carry that I don't change at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, all right. So moving on. So we're going to go with the Casio. So we have 5 top watches. Yep. Our first category is a Casio. And of course, we know what this one is.
Should we outline all of the categories first?
Yep. So we have the Casio, and I think, oh man, what's after the Casio? I don't know what's after. I know.
So we did. So the categories we had is we said, okay, we could just do our top 5, but that might be a little boring. So let's do a Casio, an AliExpress watch, a Microbrand, and then we can pick 2 watches that we like to be in the top 5, but they can't be duplicated brands.
Right.
So, like I can't have 2 Rolexes in addition to the 3 other watches. Now, when it comes to, just as a disclaimer, we did the Microbrand. Like, obviously, if you wanted to have 3 Microbrands in there, you could.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as they're different brands.
As long as they're different brands. Yeah.
Right.
So we both have 5 watches from 5 different brands effectively here for us.
Yeah.
So so my first one's Casio, or my first Casio, I should say, is really simple. It's the 5610. And you might be thinking, the average person might be going, well, this isn't a dive watch. Well, it's 200 meters water resistant. It's got a great backlight, which sure you probably shouldn't be using it when you're diving, but good lume. Multiple functions. You can use a timer, you can use the stopwatch, you can do dual time, or in this case like 6 time zones, right? Really lightweight. If you lose this or break it while you're using it, it's $90, which sucks, but also it's $90. It's not $3,000, $5,000. So real simple.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's important too, because when we're talking dive watches, we're not talking like ISO, not necessarily ISO certified. You're gonna be going out diving with go deeper than 3 feet. Get down into 15, 20, 40 feet, something like that. It's and for the Canadians out there, that's like 40 meters. That's what I interpret into Canadian, because I know we've got some Canadian guys that watch. But so we're just kind of we're loosely talking about dive watches, like you would dive into the water with the watch. Yeah, let's just go with that definition.
And I think we basically we agreed on the 5 brand, or not 5 brands, but the 3 stipulations and the no, double dipping into brands, but also if it's water resistant, if it's like 100 meters water resistant or more, I've not gotten any dress watches on my list, even if they're 30-meter water resistant or something, right? Yeah. But mine's simple, 5610. It's boring, it's simple, it's my favorite G-Shock.
It's a good one.
It's hard to beat.
It's a solid choice, and like you said, it is so. One of the things about dive watches that is a little bit annoying is the size, like the height off the wrist. That's just a hunk of metal. Okay, and that's part of the allure. That's part of the look. I get it. but a watch like that that's really slim and can do something like that, that's pretty slick. I think
Agreed.
that's something to watch out for. So I was struggling because I thought, what about the Frogman? Like that's a legitimate, logical choice. Let's go
Yep.
Frogman. Now it's pretty cool because this one has the tough solar. It has
Hmm.
multi-band sticks. It has all the kind of the bells and whistles that you'd find out of a G-Shock, and it's legendary. I think the Navy uses this watch quite a bit, or guys in the Navy that are divers, they use this quite a bit. And I don't know all the functions in there. I'm just like, that there's a watch there that can certainly do it. And again, I'm using loose terms. I'm not looking for a specific dive qualified
Yeah.
watch. One of the things I don't like about this right off the bat from the photo is the size of the numbers for the time.
Yeah, it's small.
It's small. And one of the things I found in the reviews I've been doing is that when the numbers are in the center of the circle, so where the Sunday 6-30 is, if the numbers were there, they'd actually be a little bit bigger because you have more space to work with. But when you start putting the time at the bottom of that circle, you just have less space. So
Hmm.
that was something I guess, more sensitive to now. So
Sure.
I like this one. I like the tough solar. I love the multi-band 6. It's 200 meters. I think it's at least 200 meters of water resistance.
No, it is. It's right there on the dial. Yeah,
Yeah, there
Divers
it is.
200. So
Divers.
it's
Yeah.
that means
So
it's
it's
Divers
diver
200
rated.
means it's ISO certified, which
It's ISO certified.
we
Yep.
we talked about this on the phone last week. A lot of proper dive watches that are capable of going to 1,000 meters are not ISO certified because ISO is a certification board.
Yeah.
Not ISO, but the people who do the ISO 6,000 whatever certification is a group. So if you buy a Rolex, it won't be ISO certified, but if you buy one that's rated for 3,000 meters, it's probably going to be rated for 3,000 meters pretty good.
You could probably go 100 meters with a 3,000 meter
Right.
watch, right?
Deeper than I can, you know.
Right.
I'm not free diving anytime soon.
Yeah. So anyway, great choice, but it doesn't quite fit what I'm looking for because there's a couple of things that I think I could go either way with this one or the next one. Here's the next one. It's the GD350. Now, why am I choosing the GD350? Well, look at the numbers on here. Look at how the positioning. It's a little bit bigger. And at the same time, it's got an automatic light. So when I roll my wrist, I can see it. So if I'm underwater, let's say I'm down 150 feet, I roll my wrist, the light comes on. No buttons to press, right? Now, I think the other one may have auto light. I don't remember. It might. But what I really like about the GD350 is the vibrate alert. And
Hmm.
I am sold on the vibrate alert as the way for the watch just to kind of notify me of something. The audible alarm is fine. The G-Shocks, it's quiet. Some of the non-G-Shocks, it's louder. I did a video on that, but it's the vibrate alert that gets I wore this to bed and woke up to my wrist vibrating because has a really aggressive vibrate. It's almost like you've ever had a bee stuck in like your clothing somewhere, like you
Yeah.
feel that vibration. It's like, oh shoot, I'm gonna get stung here in a second. It's that kind of vibration. It's a very aggressive, like a bee is on your wrist, almost ready to sting you kind of thing. So I like that. And one more thing is the timer access is right there on the home screen, the D button, the lower right-hand corner. So if I have it set up for 5 minutes, let's say I'm diving or we're doing whatever, 5 minutes down, 5 minutes up, or 5 minutes down, 5 minutes, doing around 5 minutes up. I have the timer all set up. All you have to do is press the button and it starts.
Yep.
And it goes through and does it. Vibrates on your wrist. There's no audible thing. You just have to feel it on your wrist. So those things all together, I was like, I actually think the functions on this one are a little bit more for me. I love tough solar and I love multi-band 6. It's so you don't have to do anything to the watch. Like it just goes, just put it in
Yeah.
the windowsill and it just goes. So I get that part, but it's just by a hair or two that I'm going with a GD350. So there you
Sure.
go.
Well, and the important thing for this is not a list that you and I made for anyone but ourselves, right?
Right.
The Frogman's cool, and is it a better diving watch? Sure, but is it a better diving watch for us?
Yeah.
Not really. It has
No.
a lot of functions that we won't get the usage out of. You care about telling the time quickly and readily, and that's a watch
Yeah.
that has some wasted space on there.
Yeah.
But the GD350 is more utilitarian for what we do. So
Yeah.
I would take the GD350 over a Frogman too.
Yeah. It has dive information on there. I forgot to mention that in the Frogman. It has
Hmm.
dive information. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, it's a dive watch. I totally get that. But you're right, Paul. I'm glad that you're saying what I'm thinking and haven't really articulated very well. And that is but the watch is for me to wear, not just
Mhm.
when I'm diving, but also in other situations. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
there we
the
go.
stipulation for our show today was water resistance, a
Right.
watch that you could go diving with.
Yep. So,
So yeah,
all right, next one. You're up.
I am up.
Ready?
There we
This
go.
is
So
AliExpress.
our AliExpress one. This is one that I've had experience with in person. I've never owned, but I have seen quite a few of them because they're popular. But it's the Addy's Dive, the Steel Dive, the all of the companies are the same company that do the Willard 1970 homage. We were talking about this before the show, but I was browsing AliExpress when I was buying some more FKM rubber straps, and I found these for $55. And that's $55 for a watch that's an automatic Seiko movement.
$55.
Yeah, $55 automatic movement. You've got sapphire glass. They had some that were
Yeah.
hello there, shiny things. Some that have sapphire glass. Some that had sapphire on the
Yeah.
bezel insert, which I think is nifty. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it costs more money to do that.
Yeah.
Right? The cases have generally pretty good finishing. The bracelets do leave something to be desired, but at the same time, if you buy a watch for $55, you usually don't get a bracelet. When you do, it really sucks. But this is one that's better than an Invicta bracelet or better than a lot of other comparable watches. Even punching above its price, you look at $150 Seikos, they're not going to be as water resistant. You're going to have worse materials. You're going to have the same movement that might be regulated worse because Seiko tends to not touch their own movements. Yeah, I just think this is a good value, right? And it's one that I would
And it's a
probably buy
Seiko
this.
movement.
It's my thing. I'm a numbers nerd, right?
Yeah.
And by that, it's like if you looked at what it costs to buy a Seiko NH35 as a person, those movements run like $30 a movement. If you were to buy
Yep.
them in bulk, maybe like 20. But when you think that half the watch's cost to you as the end user is in the movement, it's like, okay, like this is a watch that if you were like, I wanted to tinker with something, it's there. If I wanted a dive watch that was higher quality than buying an Invicta Pro Diver, I have this here, right? And
Mhm.
with AliExpress, you're not usually getting heritage as part of the brand, but you're getting a utilitarian usable thing. So I'd probably buy this
Yeah.
before I bought the actual Seiko thing because the Seiko watches use the same movements and have worse QC, as I found out from Seiko this year.
Yeah, that could be a one-off. Like it could be one. Well, actually, the movement. You're right. The movement was flawed.
I had so many people. We'll get to it because that watch is possibly on the
Yeah,
list,
it's
but
possibly on the
I
list,
had
right?
so many people who reached out about it. So
Yeah.
it impacted like 100,000 movements
Oh
because
my
the
goodness.
serial number range that was impacted was 100,000 watches.
Yeah. And you kind
So
of look at that, like, some grocery stores will have what are called loss leaders,
yep.
and it's just to get you in the store. Sometimes I think the Steel Dive, the 1970, is a loss leader. Like
Oh, absolutely.
it's there to get you into AliExpress. Like,
Hmm.
oh, there's all this other stuff, and then they, over the long term, they recoup the cost of the watch because, like you said, you've got what, $50 to spend on the rest of this. I just, man, that is
Yeah,
just
I
how
don't
they
know.
do it. I don't know. It might be
It's
just a
I
loss
mean,
leader. Like they're
for
just,
all we know, they've got kids in the factory assembling these. But I've seen
yeah,
footage of the Chinese watch factories, and they've got people who were in clean environments, like proper watchmaking environments,
yeah,
doing these.
yeah,
So, and I'll put it to you this way too: if you buy a Seiko movement, let's say you buy a Seiko, one of the 100-meter Seiko fives, right? The 100
yeah,
meter water resistant Seiko fives. That watch is not made in Japan.
yeah,
The movement may have been, assembled in Japan, but the watch was cased in China or Thailand or Vietnam or Taiwan,
right,
right? If you're buying this, you're not getting the heritage, but you're getting a watch that made not the same factory, but made in a
yeah,
very similar environment, right?
yeah,
Not to disrespect Seiko or whatever, but it's like there's a reason why value and Seiko are a conversation that happens because Seiko's value is not nearly what it used to be. So yeah,
right,
for AliExpress, if gun to my head, buy an AliExpress watch, this is the one I go for. So I think it's cool. It's based on a nifty watch, and it
yeah,
works really well.
yeah. I have that watch, and I'm just not a fan of the crown guards. It just is so
Sure,
difficult to manipulate the crown. That's just the only, I guess, valuable complaint that I have for a
sure.
watch at this price point. Because at this price point, what are you really going to complain about it for something
Hmm.
that's under? Would you say it was 55?
I 2 nights ago I saw them for $53 on a rubber strap and 55 on the bracelet. So,
$2 more, you get the bracelet.
I mean, knowing me, I'd just buy it on the rubber strap because I won't wear it on the damn bracelet. But
That's probably true.
but
I actually like the bracelet. Matter of fact, actually,
interesting.
no, I swapped it out. Never mind. I hate it.
I
Um,
I know based on reviews I saw for the specific listings I saw on AliExpress, which were Steel Dive and their companies that
yeah,
they own or whatever.
yeah.
They were using solid links but hollow end links, which for most people actually prefer hollow end links because it's easier to actually get it on and off the case for a lot of
hmm
people.
hmm
Solid end links for watches can or double edged sword was like, oh yeah, it feels nicer, but then it's like my Omegas. If I have to put the bracelets back on there, it's a pain in the rear end.
Yeah,
So, but yeah,
yeah.
this is my AliExpress choice.
All right, here we go. Yeah, you got to try Steel. I highly recommend this watch if you've never like if there's a watch to try from AliExpress that's low risk, low cost, it's the Steel Dive 1970. It's probably the best entry level drug into AliExpress. So,
That
all
or just
right,
buying rubber straps.
right. The straps are great too. I get a bunch of leather straps from them. I love leather.
Mm-hmm.
Mine is the San Martin SN0036. It looks very familiar, doesn't it, Paul? A little bit like something out there.
A little bit, a little
Maybe
bit.
something that's going to show up a little later.
It's it's got elements of that and elements of other watches, but
Yeah.
it's very handsomely done.
Yeah, and I really like the looks of it. I love the color. It has kind of a fume blue dial. It's kind of hard with the pictures I chose to see that. The one thing I don't like about this watch, and it happened after I got it, is the
Sure,
skeletonized hands. I just have a hard
fair.
time seeing the minute hand up against the hour markers. You just lose track of it. There's just not enough of the white arrowhead that backs
Hmm.
out away from the hour marker. So it's just a hard thing to keep track of.
Well, and truth be told, on the watch that this is partially homaging, the hands on that one are thinner,
hmm
so it's actually easier to see them because the loom is applied more on the thinner hands, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Since there's less surface area to not put loom, they ended up just putting more loom on the thinner surface areas.
right. I
So,
love this one. This
yeah.
is 300 meters of water resistance, NH35. Very simple. But the catch is, and this is $190, fully adjustable clasp
Yep.
on there. And so for me, and this is what I love about this watch, and I've got it right here. When I'm wearing this for work, because I don't mind wearing this one for work because of the sapphire crystal, and it's just tough as nails. But when I'm getting hot, I can just open up the clasp,
Yep.
stretch it out one notch, put it
Let it
back on,
hang.
and it's perfect. Now the only other thing you can do like that is a two-piece strap. So the on the fly adjustable clasp to me is kind of I'm actually moving towards it being more of a requirement in the
Sure.
watches that I get because they're so cheap. Like if they can put this on this watch at $190, and I've seen them on watches cheaper than this,
Hmm.
then you cannot be telling me that these big boy brands can't get the same basic type of on the fly adjustable clasp on
No, I
some of their
agree.
bracelets too. So
Well, it's funny that I'm not a bracelet guy because the watches I've enjoyed, the bracelets don't have those. So when
yeah,
it's cold in the winter, I have to remove links or do crazy micro adjusting, or if it's in the
yeah,
summertime, I have to just
right, yeah,
massively adjust it. One thing I like just looking at this watch right now, this is a design thing that some people do like or don't like. I enjoy that we have minute markers on the bezel because I
hmm
use my time bezel all the time. I'm not
hmm
going out and diving, but if I'm timing, cooking something or a project I'm working on or something, I'm one of those kind of people that like to do things to the exact minute when I can. So being
yeah,
able to say, okay, 37 minutes have passed, and it's not somewhere between 35 and 40, right? It's like actually the exact time. It's a minor detail, but it costs more. Think of it this way: it costs more money to make a bezel like that, right?
yeah.
To put the extra pips on there. So
And I'm
yeah.
looking at the watches on my wrists, and they all have actually the Laurier does not, but the other ones do. Okay, I'll
Hmm.
bring these up here in just a minute because we'll get into the actually Laurier is a micro brand. Yeah, we'll get to when we get to the micro brand, we'll bring those out. But I'm with you on that because I think the timing piece is I like that accuracy on there.
Yes.
I don't like though, and I think maybe the what was the one that you borrowed? The Momentum
Yes.
Sequartz.
Hmm.
The lines are too long, and
Yeah.
so it just kind of blends in with the minute markers inside on the dial as well, and it just looks like there's this spider web of lines all over.
Sure.
And so
Well,
I
especially
like
on
the
that
dots.
watch where it's loomed there too, so at nighttime it actually kind of like bleeds a little bit.
Yeah,
So, I get that. And they can
yeah,
certainly overdo it. I'm again, it'll come up later on the list twice. but I enjoy doing the little speckled dots there
Yeah.
on a bezel.
I like them too. I'm 100% with you on that one. All right, next one up. Here we go.
Hmm. So this here it's funny because it's a little controversial because I've had such a nightmare experience with this watch, but it's the Seiko Arnie.
Hmm.
If we were allowed to duplicate brands on this list, this watch would likely not be here. I think this thing is a terrible value for the close to $400 you spend for this. You get something that has less function than this G-Shock here that costs $90, right? But even though it kind of sucks, I like it a lot. It's almost like if you have like a jalopy car that is just terrible, but you still like it. I'm kind of having that thing with this Seiko, where the like having to unscrew the pushers to do stuff. It feels chintzy. The actual watch itself doesn't feel like a super quality watch.
Yeah.
Mine was defective, and it went back to Seiko twice until they just gave me a new one that was from old stock. Right, like if you're looking at a Seiko Arnie right now, do not buy one. is what I will say. Wait until 2025 to buy one. But I just ended up really liking it, as I have in the photo here. So the reason why I have the photo the way it is, Roger Moore wore this watch at the beginning of the worst James Bond film, which is A View to a Kill.
Yeah.
If anyone watching is a fan of View to a Kill, I would recommend that you see your doctor because you might have COVID because you have no taste. But he wears this at the beginning of the film. As a Bond fan, you'd think I'd know this.
Yeah.
I didn't. I found this out like a month and a half after I bought the watch
Yeah.
because it's the beginning of my least favorite film of the franchise. But solar powered watch, it's a quartz movement, anti-digi movement. The hands are a little too stubby. It's hard to quickly tell the time on it.
Right.
But then
Yeah.
you have the digital display at the top, which I have it set for time here in this photograph, but normally I have the day of the week and the date at the top, and then I just use the hands for telling the time. The bezel action's not great, but it's a watch that I've really come to enjoy because it's kind of like an anti-digi G-Shock, but a lot of the anti-digi G-Shocks just don't really vibe with me.
Okay.
Right? The lume's fantastic. The backlight is serviceable enough. The watch just doesn't feel like a good value, but it's one that I've really come to enjoy. Right? But I have to preface all of this with, if I could have a second of another brand on this list, I probably would have. But this is one that I've been wearing a ton, partially for the review, but also because I have enjoyed wearing it.
Yeah.
I've swapped the strap because the OEM strap is soft and supple, but it has a giant steel keeper that scratches up everything. On hot days, it digs into your arm. I'm out in the desert shooting a lot as part of our website.
Yeah.
So it's like, do I want to have this like inch by inch square buckle of metal always on me? Not particularly. So,
sorry, matey.
So
like,
when
buckle. You showed me it. I was like, that's huge.
It's massive. So once I'm done with my review process, I'll be sending this to you to try out.
All right.
And then
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, well, I don't think that. I mean, you've seen it in person. I kind of already know how you're going to be feeling about it. But it's one of those watches that I saw so many reviews. People like, I love it, but I can't pull off the look. Well, I've got big enough arms that I can wear it and feel fine. But now it's like, I wish I was wearing a G-Shock because it's the same thing but worse.
Yeah.
As in the G-Shock's better than this. But I'm also testing out the Momentum UDT Diver when that comes in next month.
Oh, that's right.
You
caved in when you got it.
I did. Well, they had a special price and they threw in some extra stuff, but that one, obviously I can't make any judgments on it yet, but it has no backlight, which I know is a deal breaker for you. For me though, it's like the thing's like wafer thin. It's like 11.5 millimeters thin.
Yeah.
So once I get it in, I'll run it through its paces.
Yeah.
But no second hand on that watch either.
I'm looking forward to this. Now you've kind of given me a challenge when it comes to an anti-digi watch because I think I've got one that you might like. The combination of the analog digital, just to take a look at. You don't have to do reviews. I'm not going to like send you a watch and say, not now. You have to do a review, Paul.
Oh, my thing is I'm slow on this kind of stuff. I tend to sit with a watch for at minimum a month and a half, do a lot of photography, do a lot of video, and then do a 3,000 to 5,000 word written review for our website. So it's one of those things where it just takes more time. But at the same time, like I've appreciated wearing this last week and a half. This is a watch I would not have bought before, but now that I've got it in hand, I can see why you like it because it's got a lot of good features.
And the reason I sent that one to you is I was like, this is going to push Paul out of his comfort zone. With a dive watch,
Sure.
I know you're a dive watch guy. So, that was my number one goal. Was this is different.
It's funny because the thing that's most different for me on this watch is honestly the orange dial, the colorful strap. I mean, I've got watches on bright, vibrant straps. I've been wearing some goofy colored shirts lately, but it's funny because much like the Olam at the boutiques, this is a watch where I've had people just in public be like, what is that on your arm? And I've only been wearing it for a week and a half,
Yeah. It's my
So
kids' pass to the to the recreation area. I'm over 12 years old and over 4 feet 5 inches tall.
it is a
Uh,
fun watch. It is a fun
yeah,
watch.
yeah,
But it goes back into it. Yeah, no, the like Shiny Thing said there, the Arnie is a watch that I bought one sight unseen, but I've got nearly 7.5 inch wrists and I've got big forearms. So watches, here, I'll throw it on real quick since we're here. Watches like the Arnie fit me pretty well. If anything, I would say that the Signum looks a little bit less appropriate on my arm than the Arnie does.
yeah. It's not as huge. Y- I can't hardly do. I can kind of do the Arnie thing, but I can do Jesse the Body Ventura really well.
I mean, he is the body. He's also the mind. He ain't got
Oh
time
my
to bleed.
goodness.
But the
I've,
Arnie, it's a watch that I've really
yeah,
enjoyed wearing the last couple
yeah,
of months now. It's just I had to buy one and then send it back to Seiko immediately because it was defective, and then they sent me back a defective watch, and then I had to send it back, and they just sent
yeah.
me a different watch.
I think part of it is the crowns on that are just so different. They're like in a
Yes.
triangular shape.
Mm-hmm.
You got two on one
Yeah.
side, one on the opposite side, splitting in
I'll
the
give
middle.
credit to this watch. I've never had any of the pushers or the crowns bump me in the wrist when I'm doing stuff. And
Yeah,
again, I write for a gun website, so I'm shooting every week, and I've worn this for like the last 4 or 5 range sessions, and
yeah.
doing reloads and whatnot. Nothing's bumping in there, and it's
All right,
great on the Tropic. I'm a sucker for
all
Tropic
right,
straps, so.
all right. Now, the next watch, I think, if I remember right, I have to preface this with one of the watches that I'm wearing right now is kind of a runner-up. This is the Citizen NY0040. This is the full loom. This is the SKX Killer. So the SKX is no longer in production unless you go to Islander Watch. They have
Yeah.
SKX esque watches there. But anyway, this is the one that's still in production by Citizen. Same basic idea. Left hand drive or left hand crown on this one. This is full loom. I'm a full loom nut. I love full loom. And this is an example of full loom not done correctly. Let me see if I get my wrist here the right way. Where is it? Right there. It's not done correctly because you don't have the blacked out hands.
So it just
Okay.
blends into the background.
It blends too much into the background. They're outlined in black, but it's not enough. And I have another watch on here that's going to show a really well done full loom job. So, but that's the runner up. Here's the actual. Yeah. So I went kind of big on this one. Now, Blancpain is a big company. They've been around for, I want to say it was like the 1870s or something like that,
I'll look it up real
1880s.
fast.
They've been around for a long, long
Yeah.
time. And, the 50 Fathoms is legendary. It's really, really legible. And I wanted to do something a little different. It's like, I want to go with a different type of material. So I went with rose gold. And the reason I went with rose gold because I thought it was bronze when I was looking at my phone on the website. It's like my glasses may need to be tuned up a little bit, but I thought it was bronze because I love the bronze. I love the patina on bronze. I thought it was going to kind of get that old school look to it over time. But this is rose gold, so it's not going to patina. And it just is a really cool combination as far as I'm concerned. I love the hand set.
Yeah.
And the second hand has a little, thing of red on the
red
very
there.
end of it. I love that. That to me is like you could have the most plain dial and you do that one thing on the second hand because it moves around. You get to see it. I love it. 300 meters of water resistance. Obviously, this is a legit dive watch. And it's a non-organic strap. So it's a rubber strap of some kind. I don't know what it is. Probably a $4,000 strap or something.
4,000. Come on, 8,000 minimum. Yeah, and of course
Yeah.
the 50 Fathoms was like one of the first dive watches. I
Yep.
people always think of Rolex, but I think the 50 Fathoms was the first one adopted by the U.S. Navy as part of it, like 1953, 1954. And I looked it up. Blancpain is 189 years old. They are the oldest registered watch brand on the planet.
Really? What year?
Yep. 1735, or sorry, 1835. Wait, actually, no, it might be. Let me look this. 1735, 289 years old. Sorry,
1735?
They're older than the United States is as a country.
Wow. And where are they made?
They're Switzerland. They're Swiss.
Swiss. Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, it says Swiss made at the bottom there. Okay. So there it is. I don't, this is just, is this a grail watch for me? Not really. I'm not into these high-end luxury watches just because of the value and the depreciation
Sure.
of some of them. Some of them appreciate, so I get that. But it's just, I don't know. I just don't see the value in some of this stuff. But I do see in this one just some really cool features, great sunburst style, history, all that stuff. I like to buy watches for history. I like to buy watches for technology.
Sure.
And this obviously has a technology. It's solid. It is a solid dive watch. End of story.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at Blancpain, I've never wanted a 50 fathoms, but I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's I joke with people. I had the same thing with throughout other hobbies in the past, where I can appreciate things from afar. I don't have to have it in my hands to appreciate something. They're cool watches. They've got a ton of history, but would I buy one? If this fell in my lap right now, I wouldn't keep it. I would sell it.
Oh, okay.
To put it that way.
Yeah. Would you sell it to me?
Do you have $34,300?
No. I'm looking for a big discount.
Do you have $17,150? It's 50% off.
Bigger discount, brother. Bigger discount. The cheap side of the wallet. Okay. All right. Here we go. Next one. You're up.
So this is my Microbrand choice, and you recently reviewed the one I sent you, the GMT version, but this is the original Port Jefferson from Long Island Watch or Islander Watch. This watch is a little special to me. I don't actually own this one that you see in the picture, but this is one that was loaned to me by Ryan and Mark over at Long Island Watch last September, October of last year to test out for our website. And it's fun because this was at the time the highest end watch I had worked with, right? But what I like is that the value out of Islander has always been pretty good.
Yeah.
And there are some things that they can do better, like clasps. But this is one that it kind of hit everything for me. So it's got that skin diver look, so retro, but without it feeling like it's trying to like sucker punch you in the gut with being retro inspired. You know, a lot of watches come pre-patina to be retro or this or that. This is one that it has the look, but it feels like you're wearing a proper modern watch. Good Miyota 90-15 movement, so you've got a nice sweeping second hand, very accurate. I think this example ran like 3 seconds, like within 3 seconds a day.
Wow.
Which is pretty insane for a watch that retailed for like $450.
And again,
right?
The luxury watches are not that much better than that. They get multi-positions at that, the chronometer certified stuff, but man, that's really good.
I really liked it. There's some features on this that I'm not the biggest fan of in the sense that I like it to be more like talking about the bezel. I'd love to have more timing stuff on the bezel, but the first 15 is something that you see in a lot of watches. I've got, here's an Omega that I bought that still has it's hard to see it here, but it's got the 15 minutes, starting off on that side, then it just cuts off the same as the Islander here. Yeah. I love the 6 o'clock date position. I think that's if every watch I had could do that, I'd prefer that because it's a little bit more symmetrical. I'm not someone that gets bent out of shape about a date here, a date there. I need the date on the watch because I use that half the time that I'm looking at the watch. Right. But in this one, it was that really cool looking kind of patinaed white for the loom, like greenish white, and then the black and the red was really good looking. I really love how the GMT version with the blue and black looked. I just really like this. When it comes to Microbrand watches, I was thinking about pie in the sky. I could buy a Christopher Ward. I could buy this or that. I'd probably buy another Islander instead.
All right.
Because this does everything I needed to and nothing more. 150 meters water resistant. I think this one was 13 millimeters thick, so it wasn't that thick on the wrist. The Beads of Rice bracelet was pretty good, albeit that I would this is one that's 20 millimeter lug, so I could swap to a rubber strap. I could, swap to leather if I wanted to. I could throw it on a NATO or a Marine Nationale strap. And that's part of the fun.
Yeah. That's I like when you shared the GMT version with me and you put the black rubber strap in there.
Yep.
I prefer it with the black rubber strap.
Same.
I think this is a little too dressy for some reason. It's not quite there as far as a dressy dive watch in my mind for some reason.
Sure, it's certainly sporty.
Yeah.
If I had to describe the environment where the bracelet for this makes the most sense, is like you're at cocktail hour in Key West.
Yeah.
It's a dressy environment, but everyone's wearing linen shirts because it's 110 degrees.
Yeah.
Like this is not like dressy, wear it while you go to a business meeting type of look. But I agree. I rubber strap is how I prefer. I mean, all of the watches I have here, barring the GMT Islander because it's still on the bracelet when you send it back, everything else is on rubbers.
Yeah. So, what's the color of the second hand on the GMT Islander?
The color of the second hand on this one, it is blue, so it's not as high contrast as it was on.
Is it like electric blue, kind of a bright blue?
Yes, it's electric blue-ish. It's a little dark, but the pop of lume on the hand is pretty
Okay.
legible there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the aesthetically, these watches are the same. It's just one's two-tone because it's GMT, and then it has that big orange GMT hand. But
Yeah.
as much as I like the GMT version, I think this is one of the best GMTs on the market. I don't need the GMT function as much as I just want to have a cool-looking dive watch that's very utilitarian.
Okay. All right. Well,
So,
now I got to
yeah.
go. Let's see here. I got to pull up. I have to skip. There we go. And now I got to preface this. So I have the Blancpain, and it's a cool watch all
Sure.
across the board. Like, it's a great watch. This is the watch when I'm talking about technology, because that's what I was going with Blancpain. Like, at the time, the technology was awesome. This watch for right now is incredible when it comes to the
Mm-hmm.
technology of this dive watch. It's the Resonance Type 5. This is the oil-filled mechanical dive watch. It's ISO certified for 100 meters. It's kind of the typical, I call it the chunky factor. I'm so stuck on this right now because I know what the ratio is, but it's like, I think it's a 40 millimeter by 13 high off the
I'll look it up
wrist.
real quick.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much what it is. But anyway, so it's kind of your typical dive watch size. It has the bezel, but the interesting thing is the technology to run an oil-filled watch, a mechanical watch, is, I don't know of another watch company that does this, where they can oil fill it and still run a mechanical movement on the inside.
I
So,
know Zinn does it, but I
does
can't think
Zinn?
of anyone besides them.
Oh, okay. Um, so that's just, to me, it's just a very cool looking watch. And also, when you do something like this, the dial is, like you said when we were doing the pre-show, it's right up there at the very top
Mm-hmm.
edge of the crystal. Like, you just can't help but see it. And when you have a domed crystal or a crystal that sticks up above the bezel, it's like jumping out of the watch. So to me, the visual effect is really cool. Now, when we were in Salt Lake City, or when I was in Salt Lake City, and I was looking at that, what was it? The chronograph that I had on my wrist.
Yeah, the Breitling. Yeah, like the
The
46
Breitling. I want to
millimeter
say
Breitling.
glycine, but it was a Breitling. That dial had a similar kind of effect in my mind. It was like, man, that dial is
Yes.
like coming out at me.
They did something with the curvature of the sapphire
Yeah,
crystal in that one where it really looked like it wasn't a gap between glass and dial. It looked like it was just there.
yeah.
So I
I
looked it up.
love that visual effect. Yeah.
This is 46 millimeters width, 15 and a half thick.
Oh, it's 14 by 50. Okay. So it's still in that low 3 range.
Yeah, I mean
You take
it's
the
a
diameter
bigger
divided by the
watch,
height.
but when you factor in that you have to rotate the case back to actually do all the work on it, that's why it
Yeah.
has to be bigger. Because if it was small, like I can't imagine trying to rotate the case back on a watch to set all the
Hmm.
complications here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
so I don't know all the ins and outs of this one. I've just seen this one periodically on YouTube, and I just love the visual effect. I love the idea, the technology that goes into it. I love the fact that there's an oil temperature gauge on there, like a car,
yep.
to let
And I
you know
and I
what the
think
viscosity is becoming.
when you rotate the back, doesn't the dial itself move too? I think that's part of it. The dial
I think
itself
so. You
moves
you
too.
set the time and wind it
Yes.
together,
Hmm.
and how they do that, and how I can't explain it, but that's what I read on the
So
webpage, is that
when I
they
pulled
both
up the
happen
web page,
together.
it tells you the number of joules, but also tells you the number of cogs and gears in the movement. So it's above my pay grade for how complicated it
Yeah.
is.
So just cool technology. So that's the reason I put that in there, was just like, there are dive watches out there that are not just the typical Rolex Submariners
Yep.
or all the other watches that get a lot of attention for good reason. This is just flat out cool.
Yeah.
Flat out cool. It's expensive too. I wish it came down probably a good $32,000, and I'd be really interested in it then.
Well, if it came down $32,000, they would just give you an Apple Watch that had this dial on there.
Right,
So,
exactly.
but
All right.
it's a cool one. It's a cool one.
Yeah. All right. Now we got to get back to, because I got this a little bit out of order. Now this, I think we're up to our number one. Isn't that
I
correct?
believe so. Yeah. So I've listed everything except like I've gone through the three categories and then had one of my other two. I
Yeah.
know that your micro brand is the last one because you haven't touched on a micro brand yet.
Right. Right.
So yeah, so we're moving into the number one spot, and mine's pretty obvious for anyone that's watched in the past or knows
Yeah.
me. It's the 1990s Seamaster Professional 300 meter diver. The reference, because people ask this, it's 2531.80. The photo I have here is the wrong film for this watch, but I was playing around with a poster book from the 80s that I bought on eBay. It's a book of Bond posters, and I thought it looked nice. this is my Grail watch. This is the watch that, 2 years ago when I got into watches, this is the one that I wanted to buy, and not the Omega Seamaster Professional, but this specific one from this era. And I've explained to Tim in the past why I like it, but it's very thin. It's like 11.5 millimeters thin for a 300-meter water-resistant watch
Wow.
with a decent rotating bezel, with a date complication.
Yeah.
It's using an ETA 2892 movement as the base movement, and then modified a little bit by Omega, which means it's cheaper to maintenance, cheaper to work on. Still using off-the-shelf parts. This doesn't have to go back to Omega to get service like a lot of the master chronometer stuff and coaxial escapement stuff does. And I think it looks nice. We have the little striations on the dial for the waves. The newer ones are flashier. I like, and this one's 25 years old. This one's from 1999, but even then, it was a little bit more subdued and classy than the newer ones are, where they're pretty flashy, right? Bezel inserts aluminum. Some people would say that it should be ceramic. Well, they make ceramic ones now, but ceramic is more brittle than aluminum. If I want to replace this insert, I can buy a brand new one from Omega for $20 to replace it. Yeah. There are vendors on eBay that are Omega, parts dealers. $20, $25 for a brand new aluminum bezel insert. I like the hands are thin ones, but you can actually see in the photograph here, we have lume on the sides of the sword and at the tip.
Yeah.
This watch is very legible. Even though it's 25 years old, the lume is still pretty bright, like to the point that it's better than half the watches I own. Mine, even though it's 25 years old, I don't know when it was last serviced, but it's running, I think, about 2 seconds fast a day, so still pretty good. I'll get a service eventually, but it's pretty good right now. 20 millimeter lug, so I can throw it on whatever I want to. I like it on rubber. The factory bracelet is iconic looking. It's like railroad tracks, but it has no micro adjustments, and it uses full links, half links, and quarter links for sizing.
Is that a butterfly clasp?
No, it's a standard diver's clasp. I don't have it here, but it's one that opens up. It does have a diver's extension, but it's like a full 1.5 inch diver's extension, which is pretty useless for day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a watch that I will dress up if I'm going to a wedding or an event. If I just want it to be casual, it stays on FKM rubber. I've worn it hiking. I've worn it shooting. I've worn it across the country. It's one that if all of my watches exploded and I still had this one, my wallet would be feeling bad, but I'd be fine if I still had this watch. So that's my Grail. Yeah, it's a simple one. And we don't have the price for my watches, but this one, since they haven't made this anymore, you have to pay the used price, anywhere from $2,000 to about $4,000, depending on condition. And I got mine from Japan. So I found a good vendor in Japan, vetted them pretty hard. They sent me video footage of the watch to show how it was functioning.
Right.
They even had enough links for it that they fitted it for me before it came over here. So even though I don't use the bracelet, I have because Omega links are like $80 to $90 per link if you wanted to buy new ones.
Wow. Okay.
Which is insane. Like, I'm not spending a price of a G-Shock for a single link for a bracelet. For a bracelet I don't even like very much.
Back comes the G-Shock. The square lives.
Hey, the square is king, you know? The Casio is my favorite Japanese brand for a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Omega Seamaster Professional 300 is my number one.
Yeah.
If we didn't have the singular brand instance stipulation, I probably had the Planet Ocean on here at some point. My newer Omega that I think I like more than this one, but this one is one that it's hard to say it. My brain likes this one more. My heart likes this one more. So
I'm right there with you. I think that's exactly how I would say it, because I do like the other one. What's the other one?
The Planet Ocean. And this is, again, I am a fan of older watches that are discontinued. The newer Planet Oceans are thicker and flashier. This is the one, again, Bond nerd. This is what Daniel Craig wore in Quantum of Solace and in the beginning of Skyfall. Okay. So it's a little bit thinner. Still 600 meters water resistant. Still running incredibly quickly. Or incredibly well. Yeah, 600 meters water resistant. We have the little helium escape valve that some people hate on these watches, but I think it gives them some character. It gives them a profile that no other watch has.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm someone that loves my cheap Casios, but these Omegas are like, I treat them like my cheap Casios, which is probably the issue. But gotta have some fun with it, you know.
Right. All right. So my last one. Microbrands. So let's spill the beans on that. Microbrand. The reason I chose this one is the combination of design, the aesthetic, the dial itself, the handset. The movement is straightforward and simple. It's a Seiko movement. It's an NH35 movement, so it's super easy to maintain and keep track of. And and parts. If I need to swap out the movement, I just go buy a $30 movement. I can put the movement in myself probably.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, there's so much about this watch that I actually like. Let me see if I can get to and the biggest part that, because I'm a kid at heart when it comes to watches, is the loom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a full loom dial. This is the Zelos Hammerhead bronze edition. And I absolutely love this dive watch. There's so much about this. I think this might be the more I hang on to this, the more unique it looks compared to other watches that are out there.
Certainly.
And so it's just got that dive look to it. This is what I was talking about when it comes to a handset. When you have a full loom dial, you really need to have blackout handset.
Contrast, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to get the contrast in there, and it does that great. I love the light blue hand in there. It matches up with that 15-second interval in the far upper right hand corner,
and the logo on the dial there too.
Yeah, just the whole thing, and the strap itself. The strap fits the overall look of the watch as well. So I'll hold that up here.
That style, because I have a couple similar. They call them scuba style because they've got those big aerated gaps near the lugs of the case to help water get out, but also to help keep your skin breathing better there.
Yeah.
I love those types of straps. Some people don't like them, but I think that they look cool and they're really comfortable on the wrist, like because you have all that space for sweat and air and whatnot to get in there. That's why I like it on this watch too.
Yeah. So overall, it's great. Now I have two runner-ups, and I'm going to put a flash them both up at the same time because I am Schwarzkopfing on one wrist, and that is the Wise Adamascus 88. I really, really wanted to use this one. It's a little bit more dressy, 904L steel. That's the Rolex kind of steel, high polish, just beautiful, beautiful dial. Handset as well. It's just a great micro brand. So this is like, this is a 10 basically. This would be like a 9.99 in my book.
Sure.
And it's really, I think, a 10 under different circumstances. And then the other one is, that's twisting on my wrist. Yeah, I'm going to take it off. I can't do this anymore. The Laurier Hydra Zulu GMT.
Mm-hmm.
It's smaller. Dive watch, as far as, what's the dive or the water resistance? I think this is 200. I can't see it. The hour hand is covering it up. I think it's 200 meters, but it's a GMT. But this GMT movement or watch has the timing bezel on the bezel. So I don't get the duplicate GMT type stuff. I have a timing bezel that I can use to do timing with.
And we've talked about that ad nauseum in the past now. That if we were going to make a GMT watch, this is a diver style one, please put a timing bezel on there.
Yeah. But the Hammerhead is not a thin watch. It's thicker, but proportionally, it's not that bad. It's like middle of the road when it comes down to the overall diameter and the height off the wrist. So it visually looks more, I guess, proportional, less thick or chunky than some other watches that I have. As a matter of fact, this one, which is on there, this is the San Martin, which was on the list, actually has a higher proportion. So this looks more chunky than the Hammerhead, just because the case size is so much bigger and it just kind of spreads it out, so to speak. So
I call it like the G-Shock effect, where you have a lot of watches that are big, but they're proportioned properly. So you wear like Jim Kincaid loving the Mudman. That's a watch that looks pretty proportional on most people because it's big in all of the dimensions. It's not really tall and whatnot. I saw this Zelos in person, and I thought that was the one that was the most unique looking.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you don't see watches that look like this.
No,
this is not inspired by something else. This is a watch that is wholly unique.
Yeah. And the Wise Adamascus is close to that, but it still has kind of that Seiko. What is the Seiko version of this one? The Seiko 64 or something like that?
The 62 Moss.
The 62 Moss. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So it has a little bit of that case design, but this one is it's angular. Like the case is just angular.
Yep.
You look at the case, the layout of the case and all that. That's just different facets on it.
Angular with a 4 o'clock crown, which is a pretty unique look.
Yeah. So I don't know. I really like that watch. I think that's probably the one. If I was to, like, Tim, you got to hang on to one dive watch. I think I would hang on to that one, and reluctantly I'd get rid of the Wise Adamascus. I love the Wise Adamascus. It's a dressier dive watch.
How often are we finding ourselves in super dressy situations?
Me, not nearly as much as I was before, and I like that. I like the t-shirt and jeans, and I used to wear the old the noose around the neck called the tie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Now,
So anyway,
are we half Windsor or double Windsor knot?
half, because I don't like the big knot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
I couldn't. I tried doing the double. I was like, man, that thing is huge.
Yeah,
Now I guess it's back in style again to have a big knot for a tie. And I don't like the look of that.
same.
I like to keep things thin and as discreet as possible, I suppose. But so there we go. There's the dive watches. So let's go back through the. Let's see here. Let's start at the beginning. I'll
Sure.
back up the slides just for people who've made it this far. All right. And so this is Paul's Casio, the
The
5610U.
5610U, the
Mhm.
classic G-Shock Solar Square.
Yep. My close Casio was going to be the Frogman, but I opted for the GD350.
Hmm.
Also, by the way, this is $90 versus $390.
Yep.
So it's $300 cheaper. So if you're looking for
Hmm.
a watch, I think that's very comparable in a lot of important ways. You're going to save yourself $300 with the
Well,
GD350. So
and I'll put it this way: we could word it this way: they can buy your G-Shock, they can buy my G-Shock, and they can then buy your AliExpress watch, and they can have 3 watches instead of one.
right,
Frogman.
one Frogman. True. That's very true. All right, this is your AliExpress.
Yep. The Steel Dive 1970 Willard homage.
Yep. This is mine, which was that San Martin SN0036. Kind of looks like the Omega.
Well, truthfully, it has elements of Omega. It has elements of some Rolex in there. It has a little bit of Blanc Pawn, but
Yeah.
it's still kind of unique looking. Like it's there's something to be said about when you kind of combine everything together. When you have that buffet blender thing going on.
Right. Yeah. It's fun. That's part of the watch collecting thing. Is like it's fun.
Yep.
All right.
The Arnie.
The Ani by the Choppa. We gotta get to the Choppa. All right. And then we have the Blanc Pawn. This is I forget what the model number is in this one, but it's
It's the
expensive.
rose gold one. It's the
It's
one
the
that
rose.
has
Yeah, go for the rose gold.
24 karat rose gold or whatever it is.
Surprisingly, every time I looked at a watch, I thought, "Oh, that might be bronze." No, it's rose gold. So I just
Yes.
can't see bronze on their website very easily. So they're
Hmm.
rose. A lot of them are
I
rose
don't
gold.
think that most of the Swiss companies don't do bronze. They'll do rose gold
Yeah.
instead these days because then they can charge more money for it.
Yeah. Well, they got to start doing some bronze for the regular people. Jesse says so. Okay. So we got the Islander. This is the non-GMT.
The standard Port Jefferson, which they may or may not be making right now, but
Yeah.
it's my favorite from them.
And this is your top.
My number one, the 19, I think the years that they made these was 1992 or 3 until 2004. So it's Omega Seamaster Professional 300-meter diver model 2531.80.
2531.80. I really like this one. If I was to get one, I would get one because of the thinness of the
Yes.
case. The case is so thin.
Oh, and they made quartz ones of these too that are a lot less expensive. So they
Oh,
aren't solar
okay.
though.
Okay.
I don't think Omega's ever done a solar powered watch.
Come on, Omega. Let's do a solar.
They should. If they did a solar Seamaster, I would buy one in a
a
heartbeat.
yeah. Send a prototype to realidealgear.com.
Exactly.
All right. And then this is the Resonance Type 5. This is actually a dive watch, 100 meters of ISO certification behind this, and oil filled, just cool technology that goes into a watch like this. And you pay for it.
Yeah. Oh yes.
And then my top one is the Zelos Hammerhead Bronze Edition. Just kind of a basic, but it's a micro brand, basic movement. But all the design elements in there are just really well done. And Zelos is kind of known for that, I think. They're known for good loom, good design, good execution, good quality material workmanship, good customer service. And when they sell, so this watch, I have had numerous people ask me if I'm willing to sell this watch. And no. And I know what the price is going for this particular model, and I still wouldn't sell it. It's just too. I don't know. Like you just don't see that stuff like that anymore. So
Well, you don't see full loom dials that are executed well. When I think
yeah.
of this dial, I think of that Tag Heuer that we looked at the night dive, where they did the same
Oh
thing
yeah.
with having black indices that will contrast the white loom.
Right.
Fully loom dials, they're usually done poorly by the companies that do them, and not many companies do them, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
This is such a unique watch. So
yeah.
Zelos, are they from Singapore?
Yeah, I think so.
All of the Singaporean watch brands I've seen, so Zelos wise, I think Aragon, that company, I think those are all Singaporean. I've yet to see a bad watch come out of Singapore.
Hmm.
Like they know how to do microbrand watches over there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Well, there you go. That's it. That's our the top 5, and the rest of this we usually have about 15 minutes of just mashing up some other topics. What do you got for a topic for today, Paul? Come on.
What the thing that I've been thinking about is how I hurt my back at the gym last weekend. So the day that I sent you those photos, my girlfriend and I went hiking to a
Yeah.
lake that's here in Utah, and I carried my backpack, my hiking bag, about 30 to 35 pounds in there. And I felt fine, but I was not staying hydrated enough. I was not dehydrating myself or anything, but it was 105, 110 degrees that day.
Yeah.
And even though I was staying hydrated and getting salts in, so I wasn't, losing electrolytes, I still dehydrated myself enough that I got a pretty bad muscle cramp the next day at the gym. And the last week I've been paying for that. So I've cramped on my back. It's my lats. So the
Yeah.
bottom of my lats. I was out shooting today. I've got the footage on the channel. Shout out to Johan, who's already commented on the videos. I was shooting today, testing out a 1911, and I'm shooting, and I do a reload to shoot, and I feel that cramp in my back hit. So this is a PSA: stretch and stay hydrated. Everybody, make sure you're stretching and staying hydrated.
Oh man.
But
Wow.
that's one topic, and I guess the other one. This is something that I'm sure that you do, but it doesn't come up much. So I call it watch spotting, seeing what other people are wearing when you're out and
Yeah.
about. I go to the gym 4 or 5 days a week. Doesn't look like it, but I like to weight lift. It's mostly Apple Watches and Garmins at the gym if people are wearing things.
Right.
But every so often you'll see a big dude wearing a G-Shock. You'll be like, okay, that's a cool guy right there. Or something else, right? I went to a big box store today, a sporting goods store, and I was chatting with one of the guys there, and he was wearing an Orient, and I think it was a Kamasu. And it's just fun to talk conversation because he sees me in there to buy stuff, and he notices the watches, and we talk back and forth about it. But it's just fun when we're all watch nerds. But how often do you actually talk about watches with people who are not on YouTube looking at it or Watch Crunch or whatever it might be?
Right.
That's just a fun little thing there.
Yeah, I had a similar situation where I went in to get parts for my lawnmower, and I look at the guy, and he's wearing a Seiko SKX.
Yep.
And I know immediately, like, okay, so they're not making these anymore. So this guy knows his watches, right? So I said, hey, that's a nice SKX. He's like, and then we just started a conversation that lasts about maybe 2 or 3 minutes or whatever. But we immediately jumped into a watch conversation and not just a, how much it costs, where'd you get
Exactly.
it, that kind of thing. It was like specs,
Yes.
just the design of it, and it's discontinued and all that stuff. So I think those conversations are great. Do you see yourself getting into those conversations because you initiate them, or do people initiate them with you, or is it a little bit of both?
It's been both. I would say I'm 60-40. I'm usually the one initiating, but the last show we did, I mentioned that I was having some HVAC work being done, and the property owner for the house came over, and he was like, "Hey, nice Arnie on the wrist," and we talked about watches for 20 minutes
Yeah.
as the guy was finishing up the HVAC work, right?
Yeah.
So I would say it's 60-40. I'm usually the initiator, but at the same time, watch people are like car people or gun people or any sort of not niche hobby, but hobby where you generally are very interested. They'll seek it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been at the farmer's market, and I'll see people wearing their Submariners at the farmer's market. I'm like, hey, nice sub, and they'll be like, oh, thanks for noticing, like,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. But how about you? Are you usually the initiator there?
I don't think I bring it up very often. I just kind of watch. It's funny. My wife and I will be sitting like at church or something, or we'll be sitting somewhere else in the mall or wherever, and or watching TV. That's another one.
Oh,
Like,
I'm terrible about that.
Watching movies and television shows and stuff like that. It's like, I'm backing it up to say, like, what kind of watch was that? And this is where I noticed again that data banks, that 611 showing up
shows up so much.
a couple of times. Like, what is this? What's going on in this world? Like, that was something from when I was a kid, and now it's in vogue again. So apparently, I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a couple of shows I happen to see it.
So it's funny. I saw some leaked footage. So like leaked footage of the new Call of Duty game, which is I don't care about it, but I'll watch the thing. The guy, like the operators in the game, one of them had a data bank on. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I bet people will buy it because they're going to try to copy the player character arms in the game, because they were Schwarzkopfing it because the game takes place during the Desert Storm era.
Sure.
So like an analog watch on one wrist and then a data bank on the other. I'm like, okay, like I could see, like, we're going to have a bunch of like, 16-year-olds who are like, I bought the new Call of Duty. I got to buy the Casio watch now.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I'm terrible about that too. We've been watching Criminal Minds as a little, like, we're both brain dead after a busy day. We'll just throw it on and eat dinner. And I'll be like, oh, the main guy has a Submariner on, and then the other guy's got some goofy Navy SEAL
Yeah.
branded thing on, or whatever it might be. But I'll be Googling it, like, oh, what is Steve Harvey wearing on Family Feud tonight? Like, oh, he's wearing a blah, blah, blah,
Exactly.
It's
So
part of the fun.
I don't know if I'm engaging other people as much as just observing and just
Sure.
keeping track of like who's wearing what. And part of me is like, so I'm not exactly a spring chicken anymore. A few decades have gone by, but I'm looking at watches from like older guys that are wearing watches. Like what is this guy wearing? What's this guy wearing? And it's funny that the guys that I don't know, there's the smartwatch group, which is, I think, just kind of trends with, the smartphone and just
Sure.
being connected all the time and all that. So that's that kind of group. The people who are not connected that way with their watch and their phone, I think spend a little bit more time choosing their watches. I will
Yes.
start to see, I have been seeing more the big Casio G-Shocks
Yep.
that are unique Casio
hmm
G-Shocks. So it's not just the 5610, which is not, I mean, it's a legend
It's.
of a
I
watch.
went to a Walmart and I didn't even realize it, but they had a G-Shock stand there, and guess what they had? They had 3 of these in there, so they're
Yeah,
popular that they sell them in physical stores.
absolutely. But it was like they're wearing this big watch, and it happens to
Yeah.
be a bigger guy, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, making a statement here, which is fine
hmm
because I like to wear my GD350,
Sure.
for mowing purposes because it's a G-Shock. But sometimes, like, yeah, I'm gonna go big today. I don't know if you do that. Like, I'm gonna wear something that's just high off the wrist, just kind of like very
Well,
visible versus because the watch you're wearing. I will wear that when I want the watch to really stand out. It's like today, I'm going to
oh
wear a
yeah.
watch that really stands out.
Well, it's
You
it's
know?
funny that I do nearly all of my shooting footage that gets uploaded to YouTube is point of view GoPro on the head, and Johan commented, "Hey, I'm glad to see the Arnie getting worn today." So it's funny because we talk about big watches. I wear this thing like 6 days a week right now. Like, this is what
Yeah,
I wear when I go to bed and when I go to the gym.
yeah,
Right. So it's funny that I'm between a nice svelte Omega or a little bit beefier Omega, and then the other options like this watch that I've heard double digit people online say that it's too big for them to wear.
yeah.
I again, but now, again, I'll shout out Jim Kincaid. I watched his Mudman 1 year review video that he uploaded a day or two ago when I was doing some cardio this morning, and I'm like, do I want to buy a giant Mudman? you know,
There's something about it, but again, it's like watching what other people wear is kind of informative. And again,
sure,
picking up on that data bank, it's like, is that a new trend? A new old trend?
yeah,
Because they were popular from Back to the Future.
sure,
Marty McFly wore it.
yep.
There was this kind of this.
The data banks, the calculator
Yeah,
watches, just very popular.
yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that's the new trend, but I I think I prefer observing people rather than getting into long conversations about it.
Sure,
Although, because I think part of it is if I get in a conversation about this, like I want to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about. If
sure.
it's just like, oh, that's a cool looking band. It's like that's a G-Shock band. It's like that's not really the point of the watch. Is really the watch. That's the like ask a question about that, but they're enamored by the band or something.
Hey,
So it's like
what I get
you
it
know,
though. I get it because some people just something pops out.
yeah. So I guess I'm looking for a conversation that's a little more substantive.
Well,
Something like
this
that.
this might come back to, at least for me with the website stuff, with all the reviews and writing, that I've
Mhm.
had people that'll be like, "Hey, that's a cool band," when I'm wearing the Seacourts on the orange marine national strap,
Oh
and then
yeah.
that gives me the chance to be like, "Hey, it's this cool elastic strap. The watch was the one that Magnum PI wore, and if they're under the age of 30, so if they're my age, they'll go, who?" And if they're over the age of 30, they'll go, "Okay, your mustache isn't cool enough yet, but you're working on it." Um, that Tom Selleck look.
Yeah.
But it's just fun. It's a fun little thing. It could be, the watches. I've seen it for other things. But the watch thing's fun because I was donating blood last year, and the lady next to me was wearing an F91 there, and she was outdoorsy looking. So I'm like, hey, nice Casio. She's like, oh, thanks. I love it when I go camping because it's light and svelte, and the bug spray hasn't killed it, and this and that.
And it's
It's like,
$10.
and it's $10. Hey, the
Right.
F91 sucks, but also, like, what are you gonna buy for $10? Like half a
Yeah.
McDonald's cheeseburger? Like
Which, by the way, aren't they coming back with a $5 meal?
I think I have seen advertisements for
I
it.
thought McDonald's was
I
coming back with a $5
I
meal.
haven't eaten McDonald's in probably about It was pre-COVID, but the last time I ate McDonald's. It's like been 5 or 6 years.
Really?
But no, yeah, I mean, again, despite looking like this is from eating too much lean pork and beef. This is not.
I
not
think I'm turning over to Burger King. If this is the
interesting.
next tangent we go down, but the Burger King burger tastes better.
It's
tastes better than-
charbroiled.
It's
You can have it
charbroiled.
your way.
Yeah, but it just tastes better than the McDonald's stuff. I guess I don't know. And I don't have fast food nearly as much as I did a few years ago when I was mowing
Sure.
and stuff. It's like I go get lunch here because it's fast. Now it's like I don't eat much. I don't eat lunch very often, so it's just I've trained myself to not consume as many calories, especially those kind of calories too. So, but
Lunch today was a can of Nuri sardines out in the desert after doing all of my shooting. I ate them with a pair of chopsticks and some English water crackers.
I think I ate almost a sixth of a watermelon. It's like it came out of the refrigerator, and watermelon that comes out of the refrigerator is
It
so
looks so
good.
It looks so
It
good.
is so good. It's cold,
That's my
it's
biggest-
sweet. It's water.
That's my biggest the thing I miss the most living out here in Utah. When I lived in Delaware, so the East Coast. For those who aren't familiar with the geography of the U.S., I moved from the eastern coast of the U.S. 3,000 miles west. So that's what 5,000 kilometers west to Utah. Out in Delaware, if you wanted to get nice fresh watermelon, you'd find someone who's selling 500 of them out of the back of his pickup truck on the corner of Podunk Town, and it'll cost you $2. And the watermelon's the size of it's the size of two people's heads, and it's the sweetest, best tasting watermelon you've ever had. Here in Utah, you spend $5 for a watermelon this big, and it tastes like water. It's like LaCroix flavor, It's like it's watermelon-esque.
Wait, Paul. Oh, just pause for just a minute. You got a guys. They're selling watermelon out the back of their trucks.
Yeah. So okay,
I got some watermelons over here.
It's funny. So this is people who have been. I know that Chris here is in Pennsylvania. I don't know how much time you've gone in Delaware or how it is in southern Pennsylvania. With how they do the harvesting of watermelons in Delaware, is that they will buy old school buses, like yellow school buses, and chop off the back end of the roof where all of the kids' seating section is. They'll line it with tarps, and they'll have guys in the field who throw watermelons over their shoulders into the school bus. And then what they do is they drive it to the local, like, farmers, not a farmer's market, but like an auction house, where they will then auction off, like, here's our watermelon crop for today, to the local grocery stores or whatever. Yeah. And then any overrun, the workers who got them will just throw them in the back of their 30 or 40-year-old pickup truck, park outside and say, hey, watermelon's $2 watermelon. Right? And I'll tell you what, I used to drive by the same guy.
Right on the spot. They don't even have to go very far. Just undercut the price right there.
Well, because they were like, hey, we, all of the ones that were allocated got sold. So I know my old man and my dad and I, we would buy watermelons out of the back of the same guy's old ratty Ford Ranger. And I'll tell you what, I've never had sweeter watermelon in my life. And it costs nothing. So down in Laurel, Delaware, anyone who's on the East Coast, go to Laurel, Delaware. It's the poorest town in the county. Go down there, buy some watermelons.
All right. That is a great story, Paul. I think we may have to end on that story.
I'm fine with that.
Last time we were together, it was guys not wearing enough clothing and another guy choking another guy out with a hot dog in his hand.
It happens.
Which I think we have to kind of show that.
Do you have the picture queued up here?
Well, wait, I have to cue it up. Let me get back.
Picture
here.
of Marcus
We won't show the guy in his skimpy whatever it is.
Darn, Marcus.
Well, it just doesn't really fit in. This one.
I mean, that's diving attire.
Joey. UFC, buddy. I think he's got a career in UFC.
I mean, look at them forearms. He's got good muscle definition. I bet he throws a mean right hook. Now, sure, you might catch some ketchup and some bun when he does it, but
I'm totally serious because I think this is, a guy who's taking care of business, which is kind of in short supply these days. We end up calling 911 when we actually probably could take care of some of the stuff on our own.
Mm-hmm. Well, Joey Chestnut, if he does UFC, if he wins, he won't need money. Just like 16 pounds of boysenberry pie. Yep.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. Now, before we close out, should we say who we've been watching lately on YouTube regarding?
Oh yeah, you have to give me a second here. I just got
to
do the hot dog. Yeah. All right, so you go ahead. Who have you been watching recently on YouTube?
Truth be told, I've not been watching a lot of watch stuff just because I've been so busy with writing and doing a lot of videography. But I have been listening to again our friend Jim Kincaid on as almost like background like a podcast thing when I'm like doing cardio.
Yeah.
And it's funny because if you just listen to one of his videos, it sounds like he's abusing something, because all you hear is like, and then
Yeah.
you hear like him like saying like I just toss it over there, and then you hear like ding 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 and like a kid screaming, and I love it because it's like
Yeah.
he's a real guy, like he's
Yeah.
not hamming it up really,
No.
and it's fun because there are so many Casios out there. I mean, you've reviewed a ton of them, but it's a drop in the bucket for what they've done,
Oh
right?
yeah.
He's looking at models that I didn't know really existed, which I can appreciate.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at a Mudman now because, like, you know what? That's a cool watch. I would certainly get utility out of. I'm not dipping my arms into buckets of diesel or anything, but I can appreciate that they're durable.
Oh, I love his channel. I just sit and listen to like how he explains things, and it's just
Yes.
it's awesome. It really is because it is straightforward. It's to the point, and it's the kind of stuff you're thinking, and he's talking about. And it's like it just matches up so well together. All right, the channel I've been listening to, I've just kind of gotten into flight.
Okay.
Oh, please, I hope my wife's not listening. But like pilot disasters, and there was this guy, and I forget the name of the channel, so I can't tell you the name of the channel. But this is what I've been watching and listening to on YouTube.
Sure.
Is this guy who explained he's a former military F-15 pilot. I can't think.
I know there's the guy Mover who does that. He was an F-18 pilot.
This
and then
is
there's
F-15, I think.
Gosh, I think the guy's name is C.W. Lemoyne is one of the guys, and then there's a guy who was an F-14 pilot. But I watch a lot of the same stuff because I've got the brain worms for aircraft stuff.
Yeah, so he's talking about this flight down south. I think this was Louisiana. This guy was going to a wedding, and this is just recently. And on takeoff, this is a twin turboprop plane. Mm-hmm. On takeoff, 10 minutes into flight, the pilot dies.
Like oh, dead. God.
Okay, completely dead. So he gets on. There's the dad, wife, kids, and they're flying to a wedding. Dad gets on a headset and says, this is an emergency. I need help. And so he goes through the whole conversation. Like, first of all, they're still ascending, and it's on autopilot. So he has to stop that because eventually you're going to run out of airspeed, or you're going to run out of air, and you're going to start to descend. And then it's, so anyway, he's talking to them, gets that straightened out, and they're talking him through all of these different things to get him to fly back. I think they're going to Florida. And so they're going to fly somewhere into Florida. And he has never flown before. And I'm listening to this, I'm like, no way. This guy is going to land a twin engine plane for the very first time. He had some knowledge. It was kind of interesting. He had some knowledge about flight,
sure,
some controls and stuff that are on the panel, but he had never flown before. So just listening to this guy, so you had the live audio, and then this guy would break in and he'd explain something as a pilot, as a military pilot. He's like, okay, so what they're trying to do is they're trying to get him to do this, or, hey, this is a great job by the air traffic control to keep things simple and to get him arranged in a flight pattern or a direction early, so he doesn't have to do a lot of adjustments.
Yeah. Fine adjustments to get close to
and here's the clincher. This is what got me. Is like, this is a huge deal, and he had to switch channels from whom he started talking to. Must have been over, out west by Louisiana somewhere, over to the Florida flight control. So he had to type in the frequency and then switch over. Now, here's the catch. If he doesn't do this right, he could end up losing all communication.
Yep.
And there goes all of your help. Mm-hmm. You are now flying by yourself. Like, this was a huge deal. And so, I don't know, just this channel, I think I'm going to listen to this channel quite a bit.
Sure.
It's really interesting. And I've always had a bug for flying. Mm-hmm. And so if my wife hears that, yeah, that's something I've always been interested in, Melissa. So
well, all I'll say is get you a flight stick and then get you some games on your computer. That way you're not buying an actual airplane.
Right, exactly. Oh man. No, I need the real deal. I love flying.
Sure.
I think flying is a hoot. So
I enjoy it. All of my gripes with flying come from being delayed for commercial flights. But I've been in
Right.
helicopters before. I've been in
Right.
small aircraft before, and I'm someone that doesn't have any fear. But I think it's really I'm fascinated by it. I grew up near a big Air Force base on the East Coast, and now that I'm here in Utah, we've got a massive one 45 minutes north of here,
Sure. Oh
with
yeah.
one of the biggest museums on the in the western part of the U.S. So
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by it.
Have you ever been to Wright-Patterson Air Force
I
Base?
haven't. No, I when I went
Okay.
through Ohio, I wasn't able to stop there. I want to go
Huge Air
because
Force Museum,
they have one of
let's
my
say.
favorite airplanes of all time, the XB-70. They have the other remaining XB-70,
That's
which
the
was a super
Valkyrie.
yes, the supersonic
Yeah.
bomber that the program was canceled after an F-104 crashed into one in the 50s,
Yeah.
and it killed everybody. And all of the
It's like
photos were
Mach
caught on
5.
camera.
Yeah.
No, not that fast. The Valkyrie was like Mach 1.5, 2. It used like
Oh,
eight
really?
aircraft crammed together, or eight engines. Yeah, no, it wasn't. Mach 5 is something that isn't feasible by jet engine planes right now.
I thought it was something high.
I mean,
Well, now
Mach
that's
5
what I
is
said.
5 times the speed of sound. You need like a
Yeah.
rocket to do that, and the pilot
Well,
might have trouble surviving.
yeah. Anyway,
But you're right,
where
Patterson's
was I
very
going with
cool.
that? Wright-Patterson's cool air base, and the
Yeah,
museum there is phenomenal.
the uh,
Um,
back in Delaware we had Dover Air Force Base, which is a big
yeah.
cargo Air Force base. It's where the president, whenever the president leaves the country, they usually fly out of Dover Air Force Base. Is like the last stop. They have what's called the Air Mobility Command Museum there, which is a bunch of transport aircraft, but also a couple of other ones. So they have like a B-17 bomber from World War II there, and one of the
Mhm.
C-47s that was used for dropping paratroopers during Operation Overlord, and I guess that would be Neptune. Uh, the coolest thing that they have there, this is again tangent but fun. So they have a C5 cargo plane, which is a pretty
Mhm.
common cargo plane, but it was one that was used for testing of launching intercontinental ballistic missiles from aircraft. So what it was in the 70s is that this was a plan that the US had that was formed after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Is we want to try to scare the Soviets to say, hey, we can hit you with nukes that aren't being launched from submarines or the US. They
Yeah.
flew a C5 cargo plane off the coast of Australia. They had a intercontinental ballistic missile in the back that came out on two carts and it free fell. It had exploding bolts that jettisoned the carts from the missile. And then the missile, midair falling, rocket ignited and started traveling. And then they had it just detonate. There was no nuclear payload, but they did it so that Soviet satellites and Soviet planes could see what was happening. They'd be like, hey, y'all keep screwing around. We'll drop an intercontinental ballistic missile out of an airplane and then make it fly into Moscow.
Oh my goodness.
And they have that C5 there that did that
Yeah.
at Dover Air Force Base. So, Chris, that's super cool.
Oh
The
wow.
C-130 is a super cool plane.
I was just going to bring this up. The C-130 had a modification for Vietnam with the short
Yes, the
airstrips,
rockets.
the rockets, which
Hmm.
is, have you ever seen one of those take off?
Yes, well, they still do it. I think the Blue Angels did it for a long time
Yeah.
as like a fun little thing.
But you
Yeah.
see a plane that big go vertical, almost
Hmm.
vertical, and it's a propeller powered plane. It's a prop plane
Yes.
with the jet assisted takeoff. Like it is unbelievable. It's just cruising, cruising, cruising. It just goes
Yeah,
up.
no, the rocket assisted takeoff stuff's super cool, and I will tell you this that a lot of large aircraft are more maneuverable than what most people would probably think.
Yeah.
I've as someone who lived near an Air Force base that was mostly C5, C-17s, and C-130s. When you see a very big plane do some really tight banking maneuvers,
Yeah.
it's like magic. It may as
Yeah.
well be magic,
Yeah.
right? Like
And they're
so.
huge. They're
It's
thousands upon thousands of pounds of just the
yes.
airframe.
Well, it's even more. I mean, we're talking like massive weights. So,
Yeah.
and it's funny that the C-130 got mentioned because the Omega picture I submitted has that the film there, the Living Daylights, has a fight that happens on a C-130, and it was an actual fight that they filmed where it was two stuntmen hanging off the back of a C-130 while it was at like 15,000 feet, dangling off of a
Now,
cargo net, fighting each other.
would you do this, Paul? Because this is another channel I was thinking of.
Hmm.
This guy took a it's one of those parasail paraglider type things, but he put a engine prop on a backpack.
Yeah.
Would you do something like that?
I don't know if I would do it, but it's a thing that exists. I've seen people here in Utah do that.
This guy went up to 17,000 feet.
Okay, 17,000 feet is very high up.
17,000 feet. And he's up there talking about this and he says, oh yeah, there's a jet right over there. It's like, how does that jet see you in time to move, especially if it's a passenger
Hmm.
jet, an airliner? Like, there's just no way. There's no way. You're a
Well,
little speck in the
yes.
sky and then it's like a bug that you see coming up towards the windshield of a car. It's like, well, I'm going to hit that bug.
It's
Like,
I don't know if I do that, but it's I mean that's something that like if there weren't other concerns like getting hit by an aircraft,
yeah,
or like I think like worst case situation. And Chris, if he's done work on C-130, seen it like the number of aircraft I've seen that have gone down from bird strikes.
yeah.
Like I can't imagine I'm like in my little like parasailing thing, and then a seagull hits me, and then I just die.
Well, this guy, he was saying, yeah, I'm having a little harder time breathing right now. The oxygen level is very different from where he took off. He just elevated himself probably,
Mhm.
13, 14,000 feet. I think the guy was out of Utah, so he's probably got at
I
least
wouldn't be
3,000 feet.
surprised.
Yeah.
There's we have a place called Point of the Mountain, a little bit further south of where our meetup was, and people do that kind of hang gliding and the propeller stuff.
Yeah.
For me, the highest altitude I've been at where I was not in an aircraft was like 12,000 feet here in Utah, and
Yeah.
that was hard to breathe. Especially
Yeah.
hiking in that altitude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's something else. I just saw that guy, and it was, again, another flight thing, but it was just like the level that this powered paraglider thing, whatever you call that, with the back, it's a backpack version. It's not one
yeah,
you sit down in necessarily, because when he lands, he was running on the ground like
yes,
like a regular parachutist.
hmm
So yeah, it was. He says, "I'll never do that again." As he
I don't
has
blame him.
jets flying by him at whatever the perspective is, it's still like, man, that jet is going 600 miles an hour, 500 miles an hour, whatever
Yeah,
it is, probably 500.
I
At that
don't want to catch an
well,
Airbus A320 to the chest.
no.
It's not good for my health.
But you know what? It's over. Like there's no like suffering. It's just
Yeah,
like slap,
but
bug in a
then the airplane's
windshield.
probably going down too, and like I don't want to be
Yeah,
responsible for that airplane going down.
true, true. All right, enough of that. So we got our channels out there. That's good.
Yep,
And we'll do this again.
of
And we're gonna have
course.
another topic. So those of you that are watching offline or not live, but rebroadcast, let us know topics that you want us to cover. I think we're kind of hitting a sweet spot here with just variety of things. Top
Yep.
5. We did a Casio thing. We did the. I really enjoyed like picking watches for people, and I
Yeah,
had an
that was fun.
idea. If we
Okay.
pick watches for movie characters, so not necessarily people, but movie